It's Friday, December 15th, let's talk PlayStation. Alright, so we got a lot of things to cover up from last week, because last week was PlayStation Experience, or last weekend, and I couldn't quite cover that because LTPS was recorded right beforehand, but the dust is settled, we got a lot of good things to talk about, but first we'll get this out of the way. Firmware 5.03 for PlayStation 4 available right now, system performance improvement, whatever, all that jazz. Now, PSX stuff. PSX this year was it was still good. I would say it was a little bit lukewarm, and I think that's partly because of the fact that there wasn't a traditional keynote, but I totally get that, because that was like a problem we've all been sort of predicting for the whole year now, which is that we know what all of Sony's developers are doing. There's all these trade shows, like what else could possibly be for PSX? But anyway, some game announcements. We'll do this first. Here are some notable game announcements that came out of PlayStation Experience. One thing being Stardew Valley is confirmed for PlayStation Vita, and that's why I'm mentioning specifically Stardew Valley. Nothing super special. Well, people really enjoy that game, but a PlayStation Vita game is confirmed coming in 2018, and it's a good one too. People like Stardew Valley a lot, and that's a dream game on portable. I'm seeing a lot of people play it on Switch, really enjoying that. It'll be just at home on Vita, which is great. Another game announcement. We got confirmation that Patapon 2 Remastered is also coming out, which is great. I know a lot of people are also pretty happy about that. We got the first Patapon Remastered, and now we got Patapon 2 confirmed as well. Perhaps one of the coolest announcements was Medieval is getting remastered for PlayStation 4. This is going to be next year. They showed like a trailer, but really it wasn't much of anything, more of a teaser. Just showed Medieval, says, you know, coming some more details soon, going to be in 4K. I'm sure this game's going to look really, really good. It would be interesting to see Medieval on, you know, current hardware and really fine-tuned a little bit. The extent of how much they're going to remaster it remains to be seen, but I would imagine they won't do nothing too crazy, nothing too drastic, but a return of Medieval is great. We haven't seen Medieval since, well, he was included in PlayStation All-Stars, but realistically we haven't seen him since a PSP port, so it's been quite a while. Nice to see another fun IP revisited. Now, perhaps the coolest part of PSX this year was the VR support, because VR was on the forefront for Sony for a lot of this stuff. So a lot of cool VR games were announced. I'll go over some specific ones that I think are pretty important. So right away, Rick and Morty Virtual Reality is announced. This is actually already released on Vive, and now it is coming to PlayStation VR, which is great. This is by the same guys that did Job Simulator, which I stand by that being one of the best VR experiences you can play. And on the flip side of that, Vacation Simulator was also announced, and this is again by the people that made Job Simulator. So I'm really excited about both of those games. Those are going to be really good. Those are the kind of games that if you have PlayStation VR, you have somebody come over your house that's never tried VR, put them in that game, and they will fall in love with not only those specific titles, but VR in general, and they'll understand it and get it, and it'll click right away. But I think those are some of the best experiences you can play for VR, no doubt. Now, other than that, the Wipeout collection for PlayStation 4, the Wipeout Omega collection, this is getting VR support, so that's pretty dope. The only thing is I don't know how the hell I would actually be able to play this, because I get really tough motion sickness for really fast-paced games like that. But you know, if you're totally into the whole racing thing, I mean, that's going to be awesome. Being in the Wipeout crazy fast-twitched driving mechanics and everything, that's going to be really cool for sure. And it's a really colorful game too. I mean, to actually get a first-person perspective for that is going to be very interesting. And then the other one is there's a Last Guardian VR experience that is actually already out. So at the time that they announced that, they said, oh, it'll be out Monday, and so Monday is come and gone. It's out in the PlayStation Store now. You can download that. It's really cool. Just a lot of, you know what it is? It's a lot of even Sony's own studios experimenting with it and using it and understanding what they can do with it. I think the one thing I'm really taking away from this, not just from PSX, but from recent months of Sony's pretty aggressive support with VR content, is that this is what I've been echoing for the longest time. This is what a lot of other journalists and YouTubers and everybody else have been saying about VR content and PlayStation VR in general, is that this is not a gimmick. My God, this is an actual compelling piece of hardware. This totally works. No, I've said that a million times, but Sony also gets that, and that's why they're supporting it way more than they ever did previous peripherals like the iToy, the PlayStation Camera, the original Move controllers just as is with the PlayStation 3, using first-person shooter games, doing that sharpshooter peripheral. That stuff's that was actual bullshit. This is actually something that makes sense, and the point I'm getting at here is that if Sony is being this aggressive with a hardware 1 version of the device, I can't even imagine how much greater it's going to be on, say, next generation hardware, PlayStation 5, the next generation of PlayStation VR on that hardware. Because that's the thing too. You can totally admit that VR right now has a lot of limitations, and as fun as it is, and as cool as it is right now, it does have limitations, and it does keep you, and it keeps a lot of people away from the experience, non-stop. But that's what excites me about what we're seeing now, is that the future looks pretty bright for it. Now, as I was just saying, PSX this year was kind of low-key, but here are some interesting details we got about some of Sony's first-party games coming up. So Dreams, for example, we knew that was going to be 2018 from the Game Awards. Once again, they're kind of saying that 2018, but they are saying that there's going to be an open beta prior to that. So at the very least, we could expect that somewhat soon. I would hope at least within the first half of 2018. Days Gone was also given a release window, 2018. We don't get a whole lot there as well. The one cool thing that we learned is that God of War, the new God of War coming out, that is actually, they detailed how long the game is actually going to take to finish. They're saying that this is roughly going to be a 25 to 35 hour game, which is a lot. I mean, if you play God of War, you know that typically, you can finish God of War 1 in 5 hours easily. You can finish God of War 3 in like 10 hours, certainly less than that. That's easily triple the amount of time typically for a God of War game. And when you know this God of War looks a lot more different, right? It's more narrative driven, over the shoulder, it's a hell of a lot more cinematic. And the funny thing is, God of War was always pretty cinematic, especially with some of the long sequences and quick time events. But I'm getting excited for this game for sure. I can't wait to see what the direction they're really going to go with this game. I don't think we've really scratched the surface of what this game's going to do. The upsetting thing to me for this PSX is that, and this is what I kept saying I want firm dates for these games. PSX is come and gone. We don't have any firm dates whatsoever. We still have release windows, and it's a very broad release window of all of 2018. Now, it's a win-lose scenario, I understand that we can't have it both ways. I want release windows, but if we don't have them, that's because Sony's not ready for them. And I at the very least like that fact, because Sony has said a few times now that they really do not want to give dates anymore, unless they know for sure that the game is going to release on that specific, if they're going to be able to make a deadline. So the fact that we aren't getting firm dates is also still kind of a good thing, because that means that when we do get a release date for, say, Days Gone, Dreams, God of War, Detroit Become Human, when we do get a day, you can probably be pretty confident that they will actually hit that day if it's really taking them this long going into 2018 for us to get a firm release date. For our final news story, I'm sure some of you may be very pleased to hear this. We finally got some pretty concrete hints towards the possibility of getting PlayStation Network name changes. So Sony Interactive Entertainment America's Sean Layden at PSX was talking to Kind of Funny's Greg Miller. Greg is great at always pressing Sean on some pretty good matters, or anybody at Sony for that matter. I always like when Greg is pretty upfront about these things. But he once again asked about name changes, and this time he more or less said the elves at the North Pole are working towards it. He said that hopefully he won't have to get asked this question again next year before PSX, implying that that's when they want to get it done, right? They want to get it done within a year before the next PlayStation experience. And he also said it's not as easy as you think it is, or whatever. And this is something Sony said like a number of times now. So this isn't totally new information whatever Sony says it's not that easy. And that's what I've always said too. Clearly it's not that easy. For whatever reason, when Sony initially made PlayStation Network back in 2005 with the release of PlayStation 3, clearly they did something in terms of the infrastructure where they didn't make it that easy, where they just really set up the infrastructure in such a way where now it is incredibly difficult to implement something like this long-term without harming or crippling or messing up the implementation of previous games, leaderboard support, and things like that. You know, it's just... I'm sure it's a very complicated, multifaceted issue. And the reason why I believe Sony is because they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If they could charge you $10, if they could charge you $10 to change your name on PSN, they would have done it a very, very long time ago. They like money, and they certainly like free money. I mean, let's face it, if they did have that incorporated, that, you know, $10 to change your name, I mean, that's fucking ridiculous. But they would totally do that. So the fact that the company hasn't done it tells me, yes, it probably isn't that very easy on their end, and they probably do have engineers working on it. So that I've always believed. Now it's just good news to hear that it actually might be coming relatively soon. You know, the funny thing is, it's probably a thing where they have wanted to do it for the longest time, but it's always one of those... You got to figure it's probably something on their to-do list, right? And it's not a super huge priority. It's not something that's crippling people. It's not anything that's, you know, breaking the, you know, hardware. It's not breaking systems. It's not causing millions of dollars of loss every single quarter or something. Like, it's not a big issue. I mean, it's something people want, but it's not a big issue. So they probably have a few people working on it every few hours a week or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's just probably not that high of a thing up there, especially given the fact that it may be really annoying to fix or implement or resolve. So I'm guessing it's like has been a long-term pain in their ass for them, and maybe they're finally getting close to cracking it and getting it done and finally allowing it to people, which would be great. Those are just some of the news stories that I wanted to talk about with you guys this week. So developers are going on holiday. Publishers are leaving the office soon as we get closer to Christmas, closer to New Year, so there may not be that much news going on. I always have to do this spiel just in case we do run out of news stories like I did like 2 weeks ago. Which I didn't expect to happen that week, but it might happen the next few weeks, which is fine because we always have traditional other videos that we can do, like the 2017, like we do predictions video every single year, but we'll probably do that closer to New Year's, but so we'll grade all my 2017 predictions, and then I'll offer some new 2018 predictions. That'll be all well and good. Slowly working on a Skyrim review. Obviously, videos have really slowed down lately. And if you're on the Patreon page, you might know why that's happening there. Just a little bit of more personal, you know, life stuff, which I'm sure you guys all respect and understand. But 2018 will be definitely a better year. We'll do a lot of cool stuff here, and I hope you all will join me here on this channel. So, thank you everybody for watching. That concludes this week's episode of It's Like PlayStation. I'm Ryan, but I can thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you guys next Friday.